The transport ship shuddered as it entered the atmosphere of planet Tertius. Alex Reed pressed his face against the small window and watched the red ground grow larger below them. His stomach twisted with nerves and excitement. After months of tests and interviews, he had made it. He was going to the Galactic Military Academy. "First time off Earth?" asked the girl sitting across from him. She had short black hair and kind eyes. "I'm Beth Collins, from the Luna Colonies." "Alex Reed, Earthborn," he replied, shaking her hand. "You nervous?" Terrified, she laughed. "But in a good way, I think." A third voice joined them. "David Park, Mars Settlement. And yeah, I'm scared too." The young man looked barely 18, with a thin frame and gentle smile. They were the only humans on the transport. The other seats held various alien species, all heading to the same place. Alex recognized some from the Academy files he had studied. The tall, gray-skinned lithoids with their crystal-like features, the insect-looking mantars with their multiple arms and black eyes, and scattered throughout were the Dracos, the reptilian race that ran the Academy. The Dracos were impressive and frightening. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, with thick scales covering their bodies. Their faces were long and narrow, with bright yellow eyes that seemed to see everything. Sharp teeth filled their mouths, and their hands ended in claws that could tear through metal. "Look at those 3, one of the Draco cadets hissed to his friend, pointing at the humans. "They look so weak. I bet they don't last a week." His friend laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "The instructors will eat them alive. Humans have no business in a real military academy." Alex felt his face burn with embarrassment, but he said nothing. Beth's hand found his and squeezed gently. David looked out the window and pretended not to hear. The transport landed with a heavy thud on the Academy's landing pad. Through the windows, Alex could see the massive complex that would be his home for the next 2 years, if he survived that long. The buildings were built from black stone, rising high into the red sky. Everything looked sharp and dangerous, with no soft edges or decorative elements. This was a place built for one purpose: to create the galaxy's deadliest warriors. "All cadets, exit the transport and form lines by species," commanded a voice over the intercom. The voice belonged to a Draco, and it carried the weight of absolute authority. The cadets filed off the ship and onto the landing pad. The air was thin and cold, making Alex's lungs work harder with each breath. The humans naturally grouped together, along with several other small groups of various species. A massive Draco in military uniform approached them. His scales were darker than the others, almost black, and scars covered his arms and face. A name tag on his chest read, "Instructor Dane." "Welcome to the Galactic Military Academy," he said, his voice carrying across the landing pad without effort. "I am Instructor Dane. For the next 2 years, your life belongs to me and the other instructors. We will push you beyond your limits. We will break you down and build you back up. Most of you will not survive." He began walking along the lines of cadets, stopping to examine each group. When he reached the humans, his lips pulled back in what might have been a smile, showing all his sharp teeth. "Humans," he said, as if the word tasted bad. "3 of you this cycle. That's 2 more than usual." He leaned down to look directly at Alex. "Your species has a reputation for weakness, for giving up when things get difficult. We shall see if that reputation is earned." Alex wanted to say something, to defend his species, but the instructor's yellow eyes held him frozen. After a long moment, Instructor Dane moved on. "You will now receive your room assignments and gear," the instructor announced. "Classes begin at dawn tomorrow. Do not be late. Do not be unprepared. Do not disappoint me." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. The humans were given rooms in the same building, though not together. Alex's room was small and plain, with just a bed, desk, and storage locker. The walls were bare metal, and the single window looked out onto the training fields. His roommate was a mantar named Six Arms Steve. At least, that's what Alex decided to call him, since the actual name was a series of clicks and buzzes he couldn't pronounce. Steve was polite but distant, making it clear he didn't expect the human to last long. That evening, Alex met up with Beth and David in the cafeteria. The The food was edible but not pleasant, some kind of protein paste with synthetic vegetables. They sat at a table by themselves, watching the other cadets. "Everyone's staring at us," David whispered. "Let them stare," Beth said, though Alex could hear the nervousness in her voice. "We earned our place here just like everyone else." "Did we, though?" Alex asked quietly. "What if they're right? What if humans really are too weak for this?" "Then we prove them wrong," Beth said firmly. "We show them what humans can do." But even as she spoke, Alex could see the doubt in her eyes. Around them, the alien cadets looked stronger, faster, and more dangerous than any human. The Mantars could lift 3 times their body weight. The Lithoids could survive in temperatures that would kill a human in minutes. The Dracos were natural predators with claws and teeth designed for killing. What did humans have? The next morning came too soon. Alex was jerked awake by a loud alarm that echoed through the building. Outside his window, the sky was still dark. "Move! Move! Move!" shouted a voice in the hallway. "All cadets to the training field in 5 minutes." Alex threw on his uniform and ran outside. The training field was a large area of packed dirt surrounded by various exercise equipment. Most of the cadets were already there, standing in perfect formation. Instructor Dane waited for them, along with several other Draco instructors. Behind them stood a figure that made Alex's blood run cold. General Krex was the most feared instructor at the academy. He was larger than the other Dracos, with scales so dark they were almost black. His face was a map of old battle scars, and his eyes held no warmth or mercy. Stories said he had killed more enemies in battle than any other Draco in history. "Today begins your real education," General Krex announced. "You will learn pain. You will learn fear. You will learn what it means to be a warrior." His gaze swept over the assembled cadets and stopped on the 3 humans. "Some of you will not survive this training," he continued. "The weak will be removed. The unworthy will be broken. Only the strong will earn the right to call themselves soldiers." Alex felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold morning air. He looked at Beth and David, seeing his own fear reflected in their faces. The Academy of Pain had begun. 3 months had passed since Alex first set foot on the academy grounds. 3 months of hell. Every morning brought new torments. The instructors seemed to take special pleasure in targeting the human cadets. While other species got standard training exercises, the humans faced impossible challenges designed to break their spirits. Alex limped across the training yard, his ribs still aching from yesterday's combat practice against a lithoid twice his size. The crystal-skinned alien had thrown him around like a toy while Instructor Dane watched with obvious amusement. "Faster, human," the instructor had shouted. "Your enemy will not wait for you to catch your breath." But Alex kept getting up. Every time they knocked him down, he found a way to stand again. Beth was the same way. No matter how brutal the training, she refused to quit. David was different, though. The young man from Mars was starting to crack under the pressure. Alex found David sitting alone in the cafeteria, staring at his untouched food. His friend looked like he had lost 20 pounds, and dark circles surrounded his eyes. "You need to eat," Alex said, sitting down across from him. "What's the point?" David whispered. "They're going to kill us anyway. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon." "Don't talk like that," Alex said firmly. "We're going to make it through this." "Really?" "Look around, Alex. Half the cadets who started with us are already gone, dead or sent home broken. And we're the special targets." Alex couldn't argue with that. The instructors made no effort to hide their hatred for humans. Just last week, a Draco instructor had accidentally left Beth hanging upside down from a rope for 3 hours during endurance training. She had passed out twice before they cut her down. "The Mantars are taking bets," David continued. "They're betting on which one of us dies first. The smart money is on me." Before Alex could respond, Beth dropped into the seat beside them. Her face was covered in bruises from morning combat training, but her eyes still held determination. "I've been thinking," she said quietly. "Maybe we need to start fighting back." "Fighting back?" David laughed bitterly. "Against who? The instructors? The other cadets? They'll kill us for even thinking about it." "Not openly," Beth said. "But there are ways. Small things. We make them work harder to break us." Alex understood what she meant. They couldn't match the other species in raw strength, but humans had other advantages. They could think, adapt, and survive in ways the others couldn't. The conversation was interrupted by a commotion at the entrance to the cafeteria. General Krex had entered, followed by several instructors. The massive Draco's presence filled the room with tension. "Attention, cadets," the general announced. "Tomorrow begins advanced combat training. You will be divided into pairs and face each other in actual combat. No protective gear. No safety measures. You fight until one of you cannot continue." A chill ran through the assembled cadets. This was different from the brutal training they had endured so far. This was actual combat with real consequences. "The pairings have been selected based on skill level and species compatibility," General Krex continued. His yellow eyes found the 3 humans in the crowd. "All matches will be fought to the finish." Alex felt his stomach drop. The way the general looked at them, he knew the pairings wouldn't be fair. The humans would face opponents chosen specifically to destroy them. That night, Alex couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling of his room, listening to his Mantar roommate's steady breathing. Tomorrow could be the day he died. Tomorrow could be the day they all died. Morning came with the usual harsh alarm. Alex dressed quickly and met Beth and David in the hallway. They walked to the combat arena in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The arena was a circular pit surrounded by elevated seating. All the cadets and instructors gathered to watch the matches. General Krex stood at the edge of the pit holding a list of pairings. "First match," the general called out. David Park, human, versus Razorclaw Tony, Mantar. David's face went white. Tony was one of the largest Mantars in their class, with 4 powerful arms and natural weapons that could slice through steel. "I can't," David whispered. "I can't do this." "You have to," Beth said, gripping his shoulder. "Just survive. Do whatever you have to do, but survive." David climbed down into the pit on shaking legs. Tony followed, his multiple arms flexing as he prepared for combat. The size difference was enormous. David looked like a child next to the alien warrior. "Begin," General Krex shouted. Tony rushed forward with inhuman speed. David tried to dodge, but the Mantar's reflexes were too fast. One of Tony's clawed hands caught David across the chest, opening deep cuts through his uniform. David screamed and fell backwards. Tony followed up with another strike, this one aimed at David's head. At the last second, David rolled aside, and the claws struck the arena floor instead. For the next few minutes, David did nothing but run and dodge. He couldn't match Tony's strength or speed, so he focused on staying alive. But the arena was only so big, and eventually Tony cornered him. "Please," David gasped, blood streaming from multiple wounds. "I yield. I give up." "No yielding," General Krex called out. "Fight to the finish." Tony's claws flashed out one final time. David raised his arms to protect himself, but it wasn't enough. The alien's natural weapons found their mark, and David collapsed to the arena floor. Alex watched in horror as his friend lay motionless. Blood pooled around David's still form. The medics rushed down to check on him. But Alex could see from their expressions that it was too late. David Park was dead. General Krex looked directly at Alex and Beth. "That was a demonstration of what happens to the weak," he said loudly. "Let it be a lesson to you all." The matches continued throughout the day. Alex and Beth sat in stunned silence, watching their friend's body being carried away. The other cadets barely seemed to notice. Death was just part of training to them. When the day's matches were finished, Alex and Beth walked back to their quarters without speaking. The weight of David's death pressed down on them like a physical force. That night, Alex lay in his bed and stared at the ceiling again. But this time he wasn't thinking about fear or survival. He was thinking about revenge. The Academy wanted to break them. The instructors wanted to watch them die. General Krex wanted to prove that humans were weak and worthless, but they had made a mistake. They had killed David in front of Alex and Beth. They had shown their true cruelty for all to see. Alex closed his eyes and made a promise to his dead friend. The Academy thought they were breaking the humans. Instead, they were creating something much more dangerous. They were creating enemies who had nothing left to lose. 2 weeks after David's death, Alex began to change. Beth noticed it first. The way his eyes had grown cold and calculating. The way he studied every Draco instructor and alien cadet like he was solving a puzzle. "You're scaring me," she whispered to him after another brutal training session. They sat in the empty medical bay. treating their latest collection of cuts and bruises. "Good," Alex replied, wrapping a bandage around his injured arm. "Scared means alert. Alert means alive." Beth watched him work with steady hands, no tremor or hesitation despite the pain he must be feeling. "This isn't you, Alex. You're becoming something else." "I'm becoming what they made me," he said quietly. "What they made all of us." Alex had spent the past 2 weeks observing everything around him with new eyes. He watched how the Dracos moved, noting their blind spots and reaction times. He studied the Mantar's fighting patterns, learning when they were most vulnerable. He memorized the daily routines of every instructor and cadet. The academy thought they were teaching him to be a soldier. Instead, they were teaching him to be a predator. The change began during night training exercises in the academy's death maze. It was a twisted labyrinth filled with traps, obstacles, and artificial dangers designed to test cadet survival skills. Most species relied on their natural advantages. The lithoids used their crystal armor to smash through barriers. The mantars used their multiple arms to navigate complex obstacles. Humans had no natural armor or extra limbs, but they had something else: the ability to think their way through problems instead of just powering through them. Alex learned to use the maze's own traps against other cadets. When a group of Draco cadets cornered him in a dead end, he triggered a pressure plate that brought a heavy barrier crashing down on them. The academy ruled it an unfortunate training accident. 3 Dracos died. Alex felt nothing. A week later, during underwater survival training, a Mantar cadet named Sharp Edge Sam tried to drown Alex in the deep end of the training pool. The alien held him under the water while the instructors watched from above, calling it competitive training. Alex didn't panic. Instead, he remembered something from his Earth military history studies. Humans were persistence hunters. They might not be the fastest or strongest, but they never gave up. Sam expected Alex to struggle and waste his oxygen fighting back. Instead, Alex went limp and let the Mantar think he was unconscious. When Sam loosened his grip, Alex struck with a piece of metal debris he had noticed on the pool bottom. He drove it deep into a soft spot between Sam's armor plates. The Mantar released him and floated to the surface, dark blood clouding the water. The instructors pulled both cadets from the pool, but Sam never woke up. Training accident, they ruled again. But Alex saw the look in Instructor Dane's eyes. The Draco was starting to understand that the human wasn't as weak as he appeared. Beth confronted Alex that night in his room. "You killed him on purpose," she said. "He was trying to kill me," Alex replied calmly. "I defended myself." "That's not defense, that's murder." Alex looked at her with those cold, calculating eyes. "David's death was murder. What I did was justice." Beth stared at him for a long moment, then turned and left without another word. Alex watched her go and felt something die inside his chest. But he pushed the feeling aside. Emotions were weaknesses the academy would exploit. The pattern continued over the following weeks. Cadets who targeted Alex or Beth found themselves victims of training accidents. A lithoid cadet fell into a pit of acid during chemistry training after trying to blind Alex with crystal shards. 2 more Mantars died when a training weapon malfunctioned during combat practice. Each time, Alex appeared blameless. Each time, the Academy's investigation found no evidence of foul play. But the other cadets began to whisper among themselves. The weak human was becoming something to fear. General Krex noticed the pattern too. The massive Draco began watching Alex more closely during training sessions. He assigned the human to increasingly dangerous exercises, trying to push him past his breaking point. But Alex adapted to each new challenge. When they put him in hand-to-hand combat against superior opponents, he learned to use weapons and tools. When they tried to break him mentally with isolation and sensory deprivation, he used the time to plan his next moves. The academy was designed to break cadets down and rebuild them as perfect soldiers. But humans were different from other species. They didn't break in predictable ways. Instead, they learned from every punishment, adapted to every challenge, and found new ways to survive. Alex began leaving small gifts for Beth. Extra food rations he had somehow acquired, medical supplies when she was injured, even a small flower he had found growing in a crack in the academy walls. He never spoke to her directly anymore, but his message was clear. He was protecting her the only way he knew how. One night, Beth found him sitting alone in the training yard, staring up at the alien stars. She sat beside him without speaking for several minutes. "I miss David," she finally said. So do I, Alex replied. But missing him won't bring him back. Making them pay for killing him might give his death meaning. Is that what you're doing? Making them pay? Alex was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was soft but filled with deadly certainty. The Academy thinks they're training us to be soldiers in their army. They think they can break us down and reshape us into whatever they want. He turned to look at Beth, and she saw something in his eyes that made her shiver. Not fear, but recognition. The boy she had met on the transport ship was gone. In his place sat something harder and more dangerous. But they made a mistake, Alex continued. They forgot that humans don't break the same way as other species. We adapt, we learn, we survive. And then? Alex smiled, but there was no warmth in it. And then we show them what humans are really capable of. Beth felt a chill run through her body. She realized that Alex was right. The Academy had created something they didn't understand. They thought they were forging a weapon they could control. Instead, they had awakened something that would soon turn against them. The human variable was no longer just about survival. It was about revenge. The sirens wailed across the Academy at dawn, their harsh sound cutting through the cold morning air. Alex rolled out of his bed and grabbed his gear, knowing what the sound meant. Today was the day every cadet feared and anticipated in equal measure. The blood games had arrived. In the corridor, alien cadets moved with nervous energy, their usual arrogance replaced by genuine fear. The blood games were different from all other Academy training. There were no safety measures, no medical teams standing by, no instructors to call halt when things went too far. In the blood games, you fought until you died or until everyone else was dead. Alex found Beth in the armory checking the edge on a combat knife. Her hands were steady, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. Around them, the remaining 47 cadets prepared their weapons with grim determination. You ready for this? She asked quietly. As ready as anyone can be, Alex replied, selecting his own weapons. A short sword, 2 combat knives, and a length of metal cable that could serve multiple purposes. The Academy had started with over 200 cadets. Disease, training accidents, and outright murders had reduced their numbers to less than 50. Today would see that number drop to 1. Instructor Dane entered the armory, his scaled face showing unusual excitement. All cadets to the main arena. The games begin in 10 minutes. The main arena had been transformed into a killing ground. The walls were higher and lined with razor wire. The floor was covered in sand to absorb the blood that would soon be spilled. Weapon racks stood at regular intervals, filled with swords, axes, and other instruments of death. General Krex waited at the center of the arena, his massive frame casting a shadow across the sand. His ceremonial armor gleamed in the artificial light, and his yellow eyes surveyed the assembled cadets like a farmer examining livestock. Today you prove your worth as warriors, the general announced, his voice echoing off the walls. You will fight not for points or rankings, but for the ultimate prize, your life. He began walking among the cadets, studying each one with predatory interest. When he reached Alex and Beth, his lips curved in what might have been a smile. The humans, he said with obvious pleasure. I wondered if you would survive long enough to see this day. How disappointing it will be when you die in the first few minutes. Alex met the general's gaze without flinching. Maybe you'll be disappointed, General. Maybe you won't. General Krex's eyes narrowed at the human's tone. There was something different about this cadet. Something that hadn't been there months ago. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold calculation that made the general oddly uncomfortable. We shall see, the general said, moving on to examine other cadets. The rules of the blood games were simple and brutal. All cadets would be released into the arena simultaneously. They could use any weapons they found or took from fallen opponents. The fighting would continue until only one cadet remained alive. That survivor would graduate as a full military officer. Everyone else would die. A horn blast signaled the beginning. The arena doors opened and 48 cadets poured onto the sand with desperate fury. Some ran for the weapon racks. Others immediately began attacking anyone within reach. A few tried to hide behind the scattered obstacles. Alex moved differently than the rest. While they rushed toward weapons or combat, he studied the arena layout, memorizing the positions of obstacles, weapons, and potential escape routes. His months of observation and planning had taught him to think several steps ahead. A massive lithoid charged toward him, crystal fists raised to crush his skull. Alex waited until the last possible moment. then rolled aside and grabbed a warhammer from a nearby rack. As the alien stumbled past, Alex brought the hammer down on the junction between the creature's crystal plates. The lithoid's scream was cut short as dark fluid sprayed across the sand. Alex pulled his weapon free and moved on, already scanning for the next threat. Around him, the carnage was horrific and swift. The stronger species were tearing through the weaker ones with brutal efficiency. Mantars used their multiple arms to attack several opponents at once. Dracos relied on their natural weapons and armor to survive direct confrontations. But Alex noticed something the others missed. The strongest fighters were exhausting themselves quickly. Their overwhelming attacks required massive amounts of energy, and the arena was large enough that a smart fighter could avoid direct confrontation until his enemies were tired. He began using the arena against his opponents. When a group of Draco cadets cornered him near the eastern wall, he triggered a hidden pressure plate that released a cloud of toxic gas. While they coughed and stumbled, he eliminated them one by one with precise strikes. Beth fought nearby using similar tactics. She was smaller and weaker than most opponents, but she was learning to use their strength against them. When a huge mantar tried to grab her with all four arms, she slipped between his legs and hamstrung him with her combat knife. The number of living cadets dropped quickly. 20 became 15, 15 became 10, 10 became 6. Alex found himself facing a Draco warrior named Battlescar Rick, one of the most feared fighters in their class. Rick was larger than most Dracos, with natural armor plates covering his vital areas and claws that could slice through steel. "Finally, human," Rick hissed, circling Alex like a hunting predator. "I have been waiting to kill you properly." "Then stop talking and do it," Alex replied calmly. Rick roared and charged, his claws extended to disembowel the human with one strike. But Alex had studied Draco fighting patterns for months. He knew their attacks were powerful but predictable. Alex dropped to one knee and swept Rick's legs with the metal cable he carried. The Draco crashed to the sand and Alex was on him instantly. The combat knife found the gap in Rick's armor just below his jaw, ending the fight with one precise thrust. 4 cadets remained alive: Alex, Beth, and 2 others, a Mantar named Steelclaw Simon and a lithoid called Crystal Heart Carol. They faced each other across the blood-soaked arena, weapons ready, knowing that only one could survive. General Krex's voice boomed across the arena.
"Final phase!
Fight until only one remains." But Alex stepped forward, placing himself between his remaining opponents and Beth. "No," he said clearly. The single word echoed in the sudden silence. General Krex leaned forward in his viewing box, not sure he had heard correctly. "What did you say, human?" "I said no," Alex repeated louder this time. "I won't kill her, and I won't let anyone else kill her either." The general's face darkened with rage. "You will fight." "Those are the rules." Alex looked up at the viewing box where General Krex and the other instructors watched. His voice carried clearly to every corner of the arena. "Your rules got my friend David killed. Your rules turned this place into a slaughterhouse. I'm done following your rules." He raised his sword and pointed it directly at General Krex. "If you want someone dead so badly, come down here and do it yourself." The challenge hung in the air like a thrown gauntlet. No cadet had ever dared speak to General Krex with such disrespect. No human had ever challenged a Draco general to single combat. General Krex's roar of fury shook the arena walls. He drew his ceremonial sword and leapt down into the sand, landing with a heavy thud that sent tremors through the ground. "I will kill you slowly, human," the general snarled. "I will make you beg for death." Alex smiled, and Beth felt a chill at the expression on his face. "You can try, General, but I think you're going to find that humans are full of surprises." The final battle was about to begin. General Krex landed in the arena sand with the confidence of a supreme predator. His massive frame dwarfed both humans, and his ceremonial sword gleamed with deadly purpose. The instructors watching from above leaned forward with anticipation. This human had grown too bold, too dangerous. It was time to put him in his place permanently. "You dare challenge me, little human," the general snarled, his yellow eyes blazing with fury. "I have killed more enemies than you have drawn breaths." "I am death incarnate." Alex said nothing. He stood perfectly still, watching the general with those cold, calculating eyes that had terrified his fellow cadets. Beth moved to stand beside him, her own weapon ready despite her exhaustion. "Your species disgusts me," General Krex continued, beginning to circle them like a stalking predator. Weak, soft, pathetic creatures who rely on tools because they lack natural weapons. You have no claws, no armor, no true strength. You are prey animals pretending to be predators. The general's words echoed around the arena, meant to break their spirit before the killing began. But Alex had heard these insults for months. They no longer had power over him. You killed David, Alex said quietly. You murdered him to make a point about human weakness. I removed a defective unit, the general replied with a cruel laugh. Just as I will remove you. You made one mistake, General, Alex continued, his voice carrying clearly in the tense silence. You thought breaking us would make us weak. Instead, it made us something you never expected. And what is that, human? Alex's lips curved in a smile that held no warmth. Dangerous. The general attacked with blinding speed, his sword cutting through the air where Alex had been standing a split second before. But Alex was no longer there. Months of survival training had taught him to read body language and anticipate attacks. He rolled aside and came up with a piece of debris in each hand. General Kreck spun to follow, but Alex was already moving again. The human didn't try to match the Draco's strength or speed. Instead, he used the arena itself as a weapon, leading the general through the scattered obstacles and debris. When the general stumbled slightly on a piece of rubble, Alex struck. Not with overwhelming force, but with surgical precision. The metal rod in his hand found the gap between armor plates at the general's knee, drawing a roar of pain and surprise. Impossible, one of the instructors shouted from above. No human can match a Draco warrior. But Alex was proving them wrong with every move. He had studied General Krex for months, learning his patterns and weaknesses. The general was powerful and skilled, but he was also arrogant. He expected opponents to face him directly. To match strength with strength, Alex fought like a human, with cunning, adaptability, and the absolute refusal to accept defeat. The battle raged across the arena floor. General Krex's sword carved deep gouges in the walls and floor, missing Alex by inches each time. But the human was like smoke, always moving, always adapting to each new attack. Beth joined the fight, striking at the general from his blind side whenever Alex created an opening. Together they began to wear down the massive Draco through 1,000 small cuts and wounds. Stand and fight me properly, General Krex roared in frustration. Face me like a warrior. I am fighting like a warrior, Alex replied, ducking under another sword stroke. A human warrior. The general's rage made him sloppy. His attacks became wider and more predictable. Alex used that anger against him, leading him into positions where his own momentum worked against him. When General Krex overextended on a massive swing, Alex was ready. He drove both pieces of metal deep into the soft scales under the general's sword arm, severing tendons and nerves. The ceremonial sword fell from nerveless fingers. The arena fell silent except for the general's labored breathing. He clutched his ruined arm and stared at the humans in disbelief. How had mere humans brought him to this state? This is impossible, he gasped. Humans are weak. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no superior strength. Alex picked up the fallen ceremonial sword, its weight familiar in his hands from months of weapons training. You're right, General. We don't have claws or scales or superior strength. He stepped closer to the wounded Draco, the sword steady in his grip. But we have something you never understood. We have the ability to learn from pain instead of just inflicting it. What do you mean? Every time you broke us down, we got back up stronger, Alex explained. Every time you killed one of us, the survivors learned new ways to fight back. You thought you were teaching us to be soldiers in your army. Alex raised the sword, its blade catching the arena lights. Instead, you taught us to be your enemies. The blade came down with all the force Alex could muster. It cut through scales and flesh and bone, separating General Krex's head from his shoulders in one clean stroke. The general's body toppled backward, blood spreading across the sand. His head rolled to a stop several feet away, yellow eyes still wide with shock and disbelief. Alex stood over the corpse, breathing heavily from the exertion of battle. Blood covered his uniform and face, but his eyes were clear and determined. He picked up the general's severed head by its armored crest and held it high for all to see. The arena was completely silent. Every instructor, every academy worker, every alien present stared in stunned amazement. A human had just killed General Krex in single combat. Alex's voice rang out across the arena, carrying to every corner of the structure. Who's next? The challenge echoed off the walls and into the hearts of every alien who heard it. This was no longer the weak human who had arrived months ago on a transport ship. This was something new and terrifying. This was a human who had been pushed past his breaking point and had not broken. Instead, he had become something harder and more dangerous than any natural predator. Beth moved to stand beside him, her own weapons ready, her face showing the same cold determination. Together, they faced the assembled aliens without fear or hesitation. The message was clear and unmistakable. Humans were no longer the galaxy's victims. They were no longer weak prey animals to be dismissed and abused. They had become apex predators, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the stunned silence that followed Alex's challenge, one thing was certain. The age of human subjugation was over. The age of human dominance had begun. News of General Krex's death spread across the galaxy like wildfire through dry grass. Within hours, every military base, every government building, every alien council chamber was buzzing with the impossible story. A human cadet had not just defeated the most feared Draco warrior in single combat. He had executed him publicly and challenged the entire alien hierarchy. Alex stood in what had once been General Krex's private office, now converted to his temporary quarters. Through the reinforced windows, he could see the Academy's main compound bustling with activity. Ships arrived and departed constantly, carrying messages, officials, and representatives from across the galaxy. It had been 3 weeks since the Blood Games ended with only 2 survivors. 3 weeks since Alex held up the general's severed head and asked who wanted to fight next. In that time, everything had changed. The Galactic Military Council was in complete chaos. Emergency sessions ran day and night as alien leaders tried to understand what had happened. How had their most elite military academy been conquered by a single human? How had their most decorated general been killed by a species they considered inferior? More importantly, what did this mean for the balance of power in the galaxy? A soft knock at the door interrupted Alex's thoughts. "Come in," he called. Beth entered, carrying a data pad with the latest intelligence reports. Her injuries from the Blood Games had healed, and she moved with the same deadly confidence that had kept her alive in the arena. "The Draco High Command has officially requested a meeting," she said, setting the pad on his desk. "They want to discuss terms." Alex looked up from his own reading. "Terms for what?" "Your surrender, apparently. They're offering safe passage off Tertius in exchange for you turning yourself over to them for trial." Alex laughed, a sound without humor. "They still don't understand, do they?" Through the window, they could see another transport ship landing. This one bore the markings of the Lithoid Crystal Collective, one of the galaxy's most powerful military forces. "The Lithoids want to hire us," Beth continued, consulting her pad. "They're offering command positions and a full regiment of crystal warriors to lead." "And the Mantars?" "Similar offer, but they want us to train their elite forces in human combat techniques." Alex stood and walked to the window. The view showed him the Academy's training fields, where a dozen different alien species were now practicing combat maneuvers. But they weren't practicing against humans anymore. They were trying to learn how to fight like humans. In 3 weeks, the entire paradigm had shifted. Humans were no longer seen as weak prey animals. They were viewed as the galaxy's most dangerous military force, a species that could adapt, survive, and overcome any opponent through sheer determination and tactical thinking. "What about Earth?" Alex asked. Beth's expression grew serious. "That's the big news. The Galactic Council has voted to grant humanity full military membership. No more probationary status, no more limited participation. They want Earth to contribute forces to the Galactic Defense Fleet." "I bet they do," Alex said grimly. "Now that they know what humans can do, they want us on their side instead of against them." Another knock interrupted their conversation. This time it was Instructor Dane, the same Draco who had tormented them during their first days at the Academy. But his attitude had changed completely. He approached Alex with the careful respect usually reserved for dangerous predators. "Sir," Dane said, using the honorific that still sounded strange applied to a human. "There's another delegation requesting an audience. This one is different." "How different?" "They're from Earth, sir. Human military officials. They say they're here to discuss your return home." Alex and Beth exchanged glances. Neither of them had expected this development. "Show them in," Alex decided. 3 humans in military uniforms entered the office. Alex recognized the insignia of Earth's United Defense Force, but he had never seen officers of such high rank before. The woman leading the group wore the stars of a full general. Cadet Reed, she said formally. I'm General Martinez, Earth Defense Command. We need to talk. I'm not a cadet anymore, Alex replied calmly. That ended when your academy tried to murder me and my friends. You're right, General Martinez admitted. What you are now is something much more important. You're the man who changed how the entire galaxy sees humanity. She gestured to the window, where alien ships continued to arrive and depart. Do you know what's happening out there? Every major power in the galaxy is scrambling to either recruit humans or figure out how to defend against them. You've made our species the most sought-after military force in known space. Is that supposed to make me proud? Alex asked. It should make you thoughtful, the general replied, because now Earth has choices we never had before. We can pick our allies instead of being grateful for anyone who tolerates our presence. Beth stepped forward. What do you want from us? We want you to come home, General Martinez said. Both of you! Earth needs leaders who understand what humans are really capable of. People who can train our forces to match what you accomplished here. Alex was quiet for a long moment considering the offer. Through the window, he could see alien cadets practicing human fighting techniques with desperate intensity. They had learned to fear what humans could become when pushed too far. I'll consider it, he said finally, but I have conditions. Name them. First, no human ever attends an academy like this one again. We train our own people our own way. Agreed. Second, David Park gets full military honors and recognition as a war hero. His death started all of this. Done. Alex looked at Beth, seeing his own thoughts reflected in her eyes. They had survived hell together and come out the other side as something new and dangerous. The question now was what they would do with that transformation. Third, Alex continued, any alien species that wants to work with humans does so as equals. No more discrimination. No more assumptions about human weakness. General Martinez smiled. I don't think that will be a problem anymore. 6 months later, Alex stood on the observation deck of Earth's newest military academy. But this facility was different from the one on Tertius. Here, humans trained alongside willing alien allies as equals. The curriculum focused on tactical thinking, adaptability, and the kind of relentless determination that had made humans the galaxy's most feared warriors. Beth approached from behind, now wearing the uniform of a lieutenant colonel in Earth's expanded military. The new class is ready for graduation, she reported. Alex nodded, watching the mixed group of human and alien cadets running training exercises below. They worked together seamlessly, each species contributing their strengths to the team effort. Any word from the outer colonies? He asked. 3 more systems have requested human military advisors. The Draco hegemony has officially apologized for General Krex's actions and offered reparations to David's family. Alex smiled grimly. Too little, too late, but it's a start. He had never intended to become a symbol or a leader. All he had wanted was to survive academy training and serve in the galactic military. But circumstances had forced him to become something more. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about humanity. They had assumed that because humans lacked natural weapons or armor, they were weak and inferior. They had forgotten that throughout history, the most dangerous predators were often those who had to think their way to the top of the food chain. Now every alien species knew the truth. Humans might not be the strongest or fastest beings in the galaxy, but they were absolutely the most dangerous when their survival was at stake. The age of human subjugation was over. The age of human respect had begun. And Alex Reed, the human cadet who had tossed a general's head and asked, "Who's next?" had become the symbol of humanity's emergence as the galaxy's apex predators. The question was no longer whether humans belonged among the stars. The question was whether the stars were ready for what humans would become.